rifles. We will ban all high-capacity magazines. We will ban all parts with the ability to convert semi-automatic or any other type of firearm into a military-style semi-automatic weapon.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says she expects the new laws to be in place by April 11th. The lone gunman used automatic, semi-automatic rifles in his attack. He remains in custody, charged with one count of murder, but police say more charges are likely. President Trump drawing criticism for his continued attacks on the late Senator John McCain.
So I have to be honest, I've never liked them much. Hasn't been for me. I've really probably never will.
President Trump made those remarks about the former naval aviator in front of a military audience at a plant in Ohio where they build the Abrams tanks. The plant's recently been revitalized due to the president's push to increase military spending. Hundreds of manufacturing jobs have been created, but that good news was drowned out by the president's comments about McCain.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. A group warning, watch what you eat.
Even after it's washed, a health advocacy group claims 70% of the fresh produce sold in the United States has pesticide residue on it, and some of them are known carcinogens. According to an analysis of U.S. agriculture data by the Environmental Working Group, kale, spinach, apples, grapes, and strawberries had the most chemicals.
Fox's Kevin Battle. This is Fox News.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
A YouTube star in Arizona is arrested for abusing her adopted children.
Michelle Hobson was arrested and booked into Pinal County Jail for child abuse, neglect, molestation, and unlawful imprisonment for abusing her 7 adopted kids. They've been removed from the home by Family Services. When law enforcement got to her house, 6 kids were malnourished. 1 was in a closet. They would allegedly suffer abuse by being pepper sprayed, held underwater, forced to hold their hands over their head while standing, pinched to the point of bleeding. The kids were forced to appear in Michelle's YouTube videos, some of which had millions of views. While her biological sons were arrested for failing to report the abuse, her biological daughter is the one who tipped off police about it. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Australia is evacuating about 2,000 people from the northern part of that country as a powerful cyclone approaches. It's heading in with winds gusting up to 160 miles an hour. Just last week, a cyclone hit southern Africa, killing hundreds. First round play begins Thursday in the NCAA men's basketball tournament after 2 teams close out the first floor.
Dort hanging near the rim. He lays it home and spills to the floor. Call courtesy of the Westwood One NCAA Radio Network. Lugens Dort with the lay in there, part of a team high 21 points for him as Arizona State jumps out early and hangs on for the 74-65 win over St. John's. That win clinching the 11th seed in the West region of the bracket for the Sun Devils. They'll take on 6th seed Buffalo on Friday. This as North Dakota State is also advancing out of Dayton, defeating North Carolina Central 78-74. The Bison earned the 16th seed in the East and now await top seed overall Duke.
Fox's Matt Napolitano. And Europe's first underwater restaurant opens in Norway, and there's already a waiting list of more than 7,000 people. The restaurant is called Under, but in Norwegian that also means wonder. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
If you have family or friends getting treatment right now at St. Luke's Medical Center in the Philippines, we want to connect with you. Hafaday, I'm Joe Guam. Thanks to our partners, we're bringing Mes Tamoru to St. Luke's in Global City. I'll be playing a free show on March 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. in the St. Luke's Piano Lounge for all our Guamanians out there. All family members accompanying the patient are invited to join us, but seats are limited, so please tell your family to go to joeguam.com to register online and reserve your spot. This event is presented by Guam Windward Memorial. Special thanks to our affiliate partners, Stay Well Guam, Take Care Insurance, Guam Hearing Doctors, Lombard Health Eye Clinic, Guam Premier Outlets, and Coast 360. Our contributing partners, Moylan's Net Care and Data Management Resources. Our supporting partners, American Music, Fizz & Co., The Coconut Tree Company, Kadu Restaurant, and our promotional partner, The Point, Sidus Mossids, and Biba Mes Tamoru.
I'm proud to be a Guamanian where America's day begins. And I can't forget the women and men who fought for my brown skin.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You'd think that everybody would know that, but there are some hard cases out there that just don't seem to catch on. Today I've got a reading about the words of one of the presidential contenders, one of the first people out of the gate running for president in 2020, and there's a little explanation that I have to make here. There was a time when we referred to the Aboriginal inhabitants of North America as Indians, but that's not completely politically correct now. We're supposed to use the word Native American. So it gets a little difficult sometimes. As an example, if I were a numismatist, which I'm not, but if I were a numismatist specializing in collecting nickels, some of the nickels that I would collect would be called Indian head nickels. And it would be kind of awkward to say Native American head nickels. People wouldn't know what I was talking. That would be like referring to a single person, a man across on the other side of the room, and referring to that man as they. It'd be just about as confusing. So I'm going to, as I go through this reading here, I'm going to use the word Indian as well as Native American. Not because I'm making a political statement about the Aboriginal inhabitants of North America, but because I like to kind of make sense when I open my mouth. I don't always hit my target, but I like to try. Okay, so this is the title of this argument. Elizabeth Warren claims gun laws don't reflect our values and morals. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, wants to be president. She wants it so badly she can taste it, I'm sure, which makes it hilarious that she has the audacity to claim that American gun laws, a unique feature of the United States in this day and age, don't reflect our morals and values. Of course, she's referring to the right to keep and bear arms rather than the laws that infringe on that freedom. Monday night was Elizabeth Warren's chance to answer questions during a CNN town hall. Naturally, one of the questions an audience member asked was about firearms and how to curb gun violence. Warren's response was nothing shy of the normal anti-gunner sentiment. So here's how I look at this. Laws should reflect our values. Laws are about morals, Warren said. And right now across this country, we lose on average 7.5 teenagers every day to gun violence. Just pause for a minute and think. If we were losing 7 children every single day to some mysterious virus, man, we'd be pulling all the stops to say, what can we do to change that? Where's the medicine we need to develop? How can we respond? What do we need to do? Warren went on to suggest that absolutely nothing is being done to curb gun violence. But instead, with gun violence right now, we don't do anything, she said. Not even the sensible kinds of things, background checks at the federal level, no fly, no buy. Like if you're on a terrorist watch list, maybe you shouldn't be able to buy a gun, Warren explained. Beth Bowman of Town Hall dismantles Warren's argument that nothing's being done to combat gun violence. She does it quite well, and I encourage you, and you should check it out. The author goes on to say, as for me, I'm mostly sitting here laughing at a woman talking about values and morals when we know she lied about her heritage for years. A woman who claims she never used it for advancement, yet we see numerous documents indicating that she did. She took a DNA test to prove she was a Native American. Turned out to be 1024th, and then played like she'd been vindicated. And she's going to lecture us on morals and values? Hey, do you remember what Donald Trump referred to Elizabeth Warren as, the pet name he has for her?
I think it was Pocahontas, sir.
Pocahontas, yeah. So I guess when it comes to gun rights, it's fair to say that Pocahontas is on the warpath, right? Yeah. And she went to this powwow at CNN, and she didn't need to send smoke signals. She came right out and said, people should be as moral as I am. As she adjusted, she looked in the mirror to adjust her headdress of feathers. And she's going to lecture us on morals and values. What's next? Is Hillary Clinton going to teach us about cybersecurity? And are we going to resurrect Ted Kennedy for a driving lesson? Seriously, where does this end? The fact of the matter is that one of our highest values is the ability to defend ourselves and others. We hold those who put themselves in danger to protect others as heroes, as one of the highest moral goods an individual can do. Senator Warren would argue that having the means to protect others, namely a gun, somehow makes you immoral. Yeah. So much for Pocahontas and the Second Amendment. Okay, so from there we go to what's next on the calendar here, Real Joe Cruz?
Zemi Cutney, sir.
Zemi and Cutney. After yesterday, I think maybe I'm going to have to rename this segment of the program as Songy Cutney. Okay, so we're going to start out with the daily news. Our view, it's important to vote and to do so in your own village. Guam Election Commission Executive Director Maria Pangilinan tells mayors that people who vote in a village where they don't actually live could face a challenge during the election and whose votes may not be counted at all if they are unable to prove that they live in the village where they live. Well, that's quite a sentence. Let's see. Maria Pangilinan tells mayors that people who vote in a village where they don't actually live could face a challenge during an election, and whose votes? I wonder who that refers to. Whose votes? It's kind of like who's on first. Whose votes? Nor what's votes, nor I don't know's votes. None of their votes would count. Whose votes may not be counted at all if they are unable to prove that they live in the village where they live.
I think she meant where they vote, where they're voting.
Yeah, but this is not Maria Pangilinan. This is the person who wrote this story.
Great writing.
Or wrote this editorial, yeah. So let me ask you, Real Joe Cruz. I don't know what village you live in, and it's really not material, but you live in a village, right?
I do, sir.
Can you prove that you live in the village where you live?
I could by showing my residency papers that's located at the mayor's office.
Could you show that you live in a village where you don't live?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Unless you were Elizabeth Warren and you said you lived on a reservation somewhere, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the key in this editorial here. Whose votes may not be counted at all if they are unable to prove that they live in the village where they live. In our representative democracy, the right to vote is an essential right, but it's also an important responsibility of citizens, one that too often is ignored, a vital right that isn't used. Our nation is founded on the principle so articulately made by President Abraham Lincoln that our government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Well, the United States at one time didn't allow people of color and women to vote and still denies full voting rights to residents of the United States territory. Not so. There's no denial of a right to vote. We've been through that so many times, right? People who live in states can vote. People who don't live in states can't. It's not that a conscious decision was made to say, oh, let's not let those folks out there in the territories vote. The principle is key at the local level, the idea about voting. We are empowered to elect a governor, a lieutenant governor. Did we elect a governor recently, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, Lulian Guerrero, sir.
Is there anything special about Lulian?
She's a woman.
Wow.
Maga Haga.
Yeah. Is she your Maga Haga?
She's our Maga Haga, I think.
She's not my Maga Haga. I suppose I'll be once again accused of being politically incorrect. Lulian Guerrero is my governor. And
that's correct.
Yeah, she's my governor, and there's the law of the land called the Organic Act tells us how a governor is chosen, and Lulian Guerrero was chosen governor in the last election, so she is our governor. I'm not part of the resistance, or I don't treat. I'm not. My reaction to Lulian Guerrero is not like the never Trumpers who don't recognize the legitimacy of the office. She is our governor. But she's not my Maga Haga. And if you go back and understand what a Maga Haga, what the term Maga Haga means, and Maga Lahi, we don't have those. We have a governor and we have a lieutenant governor. We don't have a Maga Haga. And I think as much as a purist as I am on language, I want to call things by their right names. Even if it's more fun to say, oh, yeah, she's our Maga Haga, just like it was before 1521 when we had Maga Hagas, right? No, she's not my Maga Haga. She is a woman, though, right? We are empowered to elect a governor, a lieutenant governor. Did we elect a lieutenant governor, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, we did, sir.
Anything special about him?
He's the first gay governor. Openly gay governor.
The first
openly gay lieutenant governor.
The first openly gay homosexual governor
on Guam.
But maybe in the whole United States, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. We elect senators. Did we elect senators?
Yes, sir. 10 of which are women.
10 of the 15.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah. Well, it's important. It's apparently important to repeat that every time you mention governor, lieutenant governor, or senators, because all of the newscasters seem it's so important that they have to remind us every time we go into the stories about the legislature or the governor. We elect a public auditor, an attorney general, and village mayors. This tremendous responsibility is why it makes it vital that every eligible citizen casts a ballot in every election. And in the case of mayors, it's critical that residents cast those ballots in the village in which they reside. So breaking that down, if you live in, let's say you grew up in Humatak, and you are now living in Tamuning because it's closer to your work or whatever, when it comes time to vote for a village mayor, you should vote in Tamuning, not in Humatak. Now, I know that's a tough one for some people. And I know it happens all the time. The same editorial says that that Maria reported that there are more registered voters in Humatak than there are people. Because, people move away from Humatak and they don't change their place of residence at the election commission. Therefore, when they go to vote, even though they may live in Tamuning, they would vote in Humatak. Now, of course, there's a convenience aspect here too. Perhaps the smaller the village, the shorter the line. So, maybe I'll think this one over a little bit, but I guess I could go to the election commission and say, I want to change my residence to Hagatnya. And the question would be, why did you move to Hagatnya? No, I still live in Jigo, but the lines are too long there, and they're going to be a lot shorter in Hagatnya. So that might be part of it. Something else is, at least, maybe I'm seeing things that aren't there, but I detect this attitude. The place where a person, a local person, a Chamorro, a place where a person is born and grows up, that's always his village. He may not be living there now. Lo Jangin Tato Berigada and a Patgun Tato Berigada sempre, né? You always are Tato Berigada, even though you may be living in Jigo or Tamuning or whatever. And I think that might be part of it, that people feel a connection to their home village and they're not willing to abandon or cut that connection, even though it doesn't fit in very well with the way we choose our village mayors. Also, it kind of makes it hard on a candidate. So if I were to move to Humatak and decided I wanted to run for mayor, where should I campaign?
Probably there, sir.
Well, maybe campaigning in Humatak would be a waste of time because there may be more people, more Humatakites in Tamuning than there are in Humatak. So maybe I ought to spend most of my time campaigning in Tamuning if I want to be the mayor of Humatak.
Or you could have all your friends from Tamuning register down in Humatak and vote for you.
One, I don't have that many friends. And two, the ones that I do have wouldn't do it. Good thought, Real Joe Cruz. So, yeah, I can't disagree with the article that the system only works when people are properly registered. You know, it's kind of like if in the States, if you grew up in Wisconsin and you moved to Chicago, you can't be driving up to Genoa City, Wisconsin for every election and still keep voting in Wisconsin. The system doesn't work that way. So good point on the part of the Daily News here. Okay, now we go back to Songe Ekotny, to the Post, and I didn't get a chance to yesterday because I closed out the program with Mo Atgidun, who did not get the Blue Star. No discredit to Mo Atgidun, but he is the chairman of that committee that I appointed him to, the name of which he can't remember. But so I'm going to award the star from yesterday. Are you ready for this, Real Joe Cruz? The Post. If for no other reason than that editorial generated so much discussion, obviously the Post touched on something that people care about and are thinking about. which is what we want editorials to do. And the Post didn't beat around the bush. They let us know exactly what the editorial policy of that newspaper is. So it was exactly what I look for in an editorial. The fact that I am ideologically aligned with the Post didn't hurt their chances to get the Blue Star, but it's not essential. Okay, then today's editorial. Input from education safety agencies should be heard on pot for leisure bill. So the Post is staying right on that same track. This will be the third editorial in a row where the Post. You got to be careful how you spell Post, right? You miss one letter, and yeah, the Post has made no bones about their anti-marijuana position. So here's the Post editorial for today. Just like the recent strategy that senators used to fast-track a bill that directly benefits a private enterprise, specifically the Guam Regional Medical City, lawmakers are at it again. This time it's clear senators are at full speed promoting the legalization of recreational marijuana regardless of the needed input from the Guam Department of Education, Guam Police Department, and other entities that will be affected. Input from GDOE is particularly crucial, even with the bill's proposed age threshold of 21. Public middle and high schools have long grappled with students going to work drunk or stoned, to the detriment of the majority of the students who want to learn and get ahead in life without disruption. Just recently, 2 Simon Sanchez High School students were caught smoking weed on campus. Court documents state a school aide found one of the adult students, who was 18, smoking weed with another student. The adult student was charged with possession of a Schedule I controlled substance within a drug-free school zone and possession of a Schedule I controlled substance. Boy, those kids' timing was perfect, wasn't it? They couldn't have picked a better time to get caught smoking marijuana at school. A community that makes it okay for adult use of recreational weed will only make the challenges with substance abuse in schools worse, because students can get easier access through the adults around them. Yeah, and that's true. And then the point that I want to keep making, and that is this, we would hope that adults model good behavior for children. So if you don't want your children to jaywalk when they're out on the street, then make sure you go to the crosswalk yourself when you go to the street, when you cross the street. Don't say, Junior, you should never, ever jaywalk. Now let's cross the street here. Dad, shouldn't we go down to the crosswalk? No, I'm in too big a hurry for that. Adults should attempt to set a good example for children. What kind of an example are we setting here when everybody who pays attention knows that possession, sale, etc. of marijuana is against the law, and we're tripping over ourselves to pass a local law that's contrary to our own Organic Act to give a legal patina to that which is illegal. And then we tell the kids, I'm here to provide guidance for you. You stay away from drugs. Stay away from all drugs until you're an adult, and then maybe marijuana. It doesn't seem to me that it fits very well. The kind of inconsistency that comes from one person saying, well, yeah, kids, you really have to obey the law. I'll give you a pass on the laws that I don't happen to like. But other than that, you really need to obey the law. So what kind of a message are we sending to kids? We hope that kids are informed about current events. I don't know if they do this anymore, but a million years ago when I was in school, we used to spend a little time every day on current events. What's going on in our town, our state, and our country. So if that's going on right now, current events, well, Senator Clint Rizzo wants to make marijuana legal in Guam, even though it's against federal law. A real character builder for kids, isn't it? Okay, going on with the editorial. Input from the Guam Department of Education, Department of Youth Affairs, GPD, and mental health service providers is crucial. Yet the legislature's Rules Committee has scheduled for senators to start the debate on the issue today, and voting could take place as soon as Monday. The bill was introduced less than 2 months ago. Freshman Senator Clinton Rigel has said senators follow the process by opening a period for public input, and not every agency testifies on a bill. Rigel acknowledged that while there have been quote, a lot of concerns, these challenges can be overcome and recreational marijuana legalization can be good for Guam. If the goal is what's good for Guam, then senators should take the time to understand what's at stake for our youth and the well-being of our community in general. In pursuit of money, the pursuit of money should not be the focus. Good timing, Real Joe Cruz. I've got just a few more comments here on Zemi Akotny. I'll award the Blue Star, and then we'll go to the card.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
I'm just going to peek at the Facebook comments for a minute here and not spend too much time with them, but I've got one post from Ishmael Velez. Manila traffic is horrible, backup due to an accident. So all you unfortunate folks out there in Manila who are sitting in traffic, the best you could do is relax and enjoy Tall Tales. If you've got the hands-free Bluetooth phone, you could feel free to call in and give us a report on the traffic jam at Manila and such other things that you might find interesting. And then I've got a post here from Lady D from Denise Legaspi, who says, legislature is taking too many breaks and not getting to business. Why do you suppose they're taking so many breaks? What's the subject matter of the bill?
Maybe they're going outside to smoke, sir.
What do you think they're smoking?
I don't know.
What's the subject matter of the bill? Legalization of marijuana? Yeah, this would make a nice political cartoon, wouldn't it? Or a riddle. Why did the legislature take so long to pass a marijuana legalization bill? Answer, because they had to take so many breaks in the process. Nice observation, Dee. Of course, we don't know why they're taking breaks, and we'll just have to wait until we can get a news report as to what happened at today's session, what, if anything, happened at today's legislature. So as far as the editorials for today are concerned, The Daily News, you maybe need to enroll somebody in English 101, you know, so that we don't have to deal too much with a sentence that reads, where they don't actually live could face a challenge during an election, and whose votes may not be counted at all if they are unable to prove that they live in the village where they live. So that wouldn't disqualify the Post on its, it wouldn't be enough. And they did comment on a subject that needs to be commented upon, rather artfully, I might add, but far below Blue Star caliber. So once again, the Post is hard-hitting, comments on something that needs to be commented upon, something that people are concerned about, and does it in a literate fashion. So today, the Blue Star again goes to the Post. So I suppose, you know, I always make the remark that if you listen carefully, if you're in the Tamuning area, you could probably hear the champagne corks popping at the editorial boardroom at the Post. Well, let me see. I got a couple of other things on the Facebook comments here. Let me dig into those for a moment. I'll just say hello to Debbie Picklesheimer. Good to see you, Debbie, and Tom Van Engen, and, of course, Denise Legaspi. Denise points out too many breaks. Denise says, kids have been smoking and drinking at school for decades, no doubt. And Joe Cruz. Now, this Joe Cruz is not you. We want to make that absolutely clear. Let him develop his own cult of personality, right, real Joe Cruz? Yeah. This is another Joe Cruz, and he said the Barbra Streisand effect in relation to cannabis laws. Maybe. Jose Martinez, people have been robbing, burglarizing, murdering, and all sorts of other antisocial behavior ever since. Does not validate making all that activity legal. And that's an interesting sort of philosophical point. We know that the laws have to reflect the, for want of a better term, morals and customs of the society that they seek to regulate. But does that mean that if there's a gross disregard for the law, that the law should just be changed to conform to what may very well be the worst elements in society? A question that we won't answer, but one that we should think about from time to time. Jose Martinez, going back to another Joe Cruz, says, poses a question, follow your nose? Nate Horn comes back with, teen use of marijuana is down in Washington. Nate Horn also has a link. Kind of hard for me to deal with links here in this format, Nate. If you want to call up and tell us what your link is all about, that's a really good way to get your message out. Anyhow, I once again, I have some posts on the whole marijuana issue. And I'm going to go on to the card, but if you have an overpowering desire to return to the cannabis issue, you have leave to do so. Okay, on today's card, I really only have one item, and that's Menogate again, which has appeared under, as if you were reading the captions of court cases. Menogate has appeared sub-nom, Mary Torres versus Danny Tydenko, and Rory versus Mike Phillips, or Rory versus our justice system versus Lou LG and Josh. So so much has happened here in Menogate that it's hard to pull it all together. So I'm just going to touch a few points, and then at the appropriate time, I'm going to do a flashback and kind of start out at what I think the very beginning was. But a really good place to start is telling Nelson's letter of March 19 to Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. I don't think we need to go into the particulars on Lou just again, do we, Real Joe Cruz? I think we still remember, right? Okay. And this is what she said. I write to you concerning the nomination of Mr. Daniel Tydenko, a matter referred to the Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics, Research, and Planning on February 1. As chairwoman of this committee, and after great prayer and reflection, it is my duty to inform you that Mr. Tydenko's nomination will not proceed to the floor. Instead, it is my sincere hope that you will nominate an individual who is committed to service of others, someone whose call to service unites our community more than it divides us, someone who represents the change of your administration, someone who represents the change your administration has ensured the people of Guam. Okay, so Talina is telling the governor, you sent Danny's name over here, but Danny's name is not going to, I'm not going to do a committee report. I'm not going to let the committee decide one way or the other whether the matter should go forward. As the chairman, I've decided that I am not going to send Danny's name forward for confirmation. If Real Joe Cruz were still doing his Yogi Berra imitations, he would probably say, oh, this reminds me of deja vu. Or maybe he'd say, this is deja vu all over again. Because we went through the same thing when Palacios was appointed to be the director of Customs and Quarantine, and there was a lot of name-calling and gnashing of teeth and references to the separation of powers, comedy, the duties of each branch, fairness, justice, good appetite. No, that wasn't part of it. Yeah. But very few descriptive terms were left out of it, and Governor Eddie Calvo said that, you really shouldn't do this. This is too much power for one person to have to hold up this confirmation process. So that was Talina did it then, and I don't think that she got burned in the process, because when she ran for re-election, she did pretty well. And I don't think that it put her at odds with her colleagues because they chose her to be the vice speaker of the legislature. So if I were to look at this in purely political terms, I might be tempted to say Talina has figured out a way to play this particular hand for the maximum number of tricks. If we were talking bridge or canasta or some game like that, right? And I mentioned yesterday that the dynamics of legislative confirmations are that a senator who votes against a nominee will hope to get his reward in heaven, because he'll never get it on earth. The nominee will hate him forever. Excuse me. Yeah, will hate them forever. That senator who votes against the nomination will find that people will hate them forever. And he will get no political plus points from anywhere. Voting in favor of the nominee, well, it makes people's tummy warm and it's quickly forgotten, but it doesn't have the downside. Even if the nominee turns out to be an absolute jerk, people really usually don't trace that back to the senators who voted in favor of that nominee's confirmation. So here we have something that I don't think I've ever seen before. I really didn't like the sight of it either. I felt a little empathy for Dan Tydenko as one who has sat before a legislative committee as a nominee for an executive position. And it's not something you look forward to under the best of circumstances. So Dan sat there and answered whatever questions were thrown at him. Others testified and threw barbs at Dan. That happens. But at the end of the hearing, after Dan had lost his grip on the microphone, a sitting senator, Mary Torres, came along and said, "This guy is not good. I don't think he should be supported." So in that case, Mary Torres was acting more as a witness before the committee than she was as a sitting senator. And she, speaking ex cathedra, she put Dan at something of a disadvantage. This is probably, I got a phone call here right now. It's probably Mary Torres. No, it's not. It's our Tom, right? Good afternoon, Tom.
It is absolutely not Mary Torres.
Not even close.
Anyway, in this legislature that we got now, and possibly the previous legislatures, they are, I should say, totally opposite of our American Constitution. And our American Constitution specifically says that you are innocent until proven guilty. Okay, but here, you are guilty until you are proven innocent. And I will give you an example of what happened yesterday to the midday program on K57, where the host invited in former Senator Mary, or actually sitting Senator Mary Torres, to be interviewed by the host of the midday show on K57.
Do they have a talk show at K57 in the middle of the day, Tom?
Yeah.
Well.
And Andrea's show.
Huh.
Andrea invited Mary Torres in for a whole hour to physically talk with her live in her program, at her program, right?
Uh-huh.
But she did not make an attempt to invite Mr. Tydenko in also, so she can, so the host can hear both sides of the story of the issue. There's so much bias going on here. And just today, this afternoon, at 1400-hour program of K57, the host there literally hung up on me when I was trying to explain what the editorial of the Post was trying to say. But they are so adamant that whatever views are out there that is against their views, they'll hang up on you.
Does Jack ever call?
Let me speak. Because he was the host of the 1400 program this afternoon on K57, was literally yelling to the microphone, and he was saying, "I do not understand why the Post editorial is saying this, that it is going to make things harder for the Justice Department, for the Police Department, to catch students bringing in marijuana and smoking marijuana in campus." And I was trying to get to that part where they a couple of days ago, they just caught 2 students behind the school building smoking weed, one 18-year-old and one minor. And I was trying to get to that, but the host of K57 at the 1400-hour program did not want to listen. He just literally hung up on me. So in other words, they already have their mindset that they want marijuana to be legalized no matter what the majority of the people of Guam say, they want it legalized. Because that's what they want. They are backing up Mr. Ezell all the way 100%. And all the editorial of the Post was saying is that we should slow down before they start debating this in their session hall to try to make this bill law that Mr. Ezell introduced. We should slow down, like what all of the editorial was just saying. Is slow down. Let's be too hasty in this. Let's have further debate. But no. The advocates for marijuana, they're just saying it's enough already. People should have showed up already to the public hearing. And I was trying to make it clear also to Andrea in her program yesterday that there's not enough people to have enough time to show up at those public hearings because most of them will probably be at work trying to earn money for their children. They don't have time to go down there during working hours to testify at a public hearing. So it should have been a debate put out in the public on a Saturday or a Sunday on a non-working day where people can literally attend and let's have a more debate on this. So let's hear both sides of the issue from everybody, not just 30 or 40 people that will show up at a public hearing down there at the Congress building. That's what I was trying to stress. But the advocates were they're adamant. They want to rush this through. They want to debate this in the session hall, and they want to pass it out. They want to pass it immediately, like you were saying yesterday. They wanted to legalize this before it becomes legal. You know, they want to get the credit for legalizing it before somebody else makes it legal.
Well, my sympathies, Tom, and I'll give you this. When you call K57, we're going to hear you out and agree with me or disagree with me. You've disagreed with me before, and it was especially important because you were right and I was wrong. But I'm not going to hang up on you, Tom, so thanks a lot for calling, okay? I got to go to a break.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
The GCC Votech Class of 79 is back. Join them on April 27th at the Onward Beach Hotel for a night of dinner, dancing, skits, and reminiscing. It's been 40 years since graduation, so take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive the memories. There's also a memorial mass on Friday, the 26th at the Santa Teresita Church. Be there at 5:30 for candle placement in honor of classmates who've gone before. Tickets for the reunion on the 27th are on sale for $40 a person. For details, find Connie Kittigwa San Nicolas at 488-6108 or Kathy Diaz, 777-3243. Bebas 79ers.
Okay, so we closed out that portion of the show with a call from our Tom, who is pretty interested in the whole cannabis issue, and usually presents himself pretty well when he calls K57. I'm always glad when I look at my stack VIP here and I see I've got a call from any one of the Toms.
I wouldn't hang up on him, sir.
I would not hang up. I would never hang up on a Tom.
I think that's rude.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when I was doing Tall Tales on another radio station, you know, there were a couple of times when Tom called me up and pointed out something to me, and he was right and I was wrong, which to me makes him an even more valuable caller, right? So we're glad you called, Tom, and I think that when it comes to important issues, clear heads and open ears work really well for us. A rush to judgment, a hasty approach to important issues, ramming things through regardless of possible problems, a lot of times don't work out so well. So I got to agree with the position that you took. Okay, unless somebody else has an overpowering desire to talk about the legalization of cannabis, I'm going to go back to Menogate. And as I said, we had something that I don't think I've ever seen before, where a nominee came before the committee, was questioned, gave his testimony, and then when the testimony was over, a member of the committee had derogatory, in effect, testimony against the nominee. And, of course, he had no avenue. He had no, the only thing he could do would be to sit there and listen. And he kind of had the deck stacked against him. And I didn't think that was very appropriate. I have seen senators get up from their chairs and walk down, sit in front of the microphone, and testify themselves. But, you know, the reason that we have a public hearing is to hear the witnesses that come before the public hearing, the people that sit there and talk into the microphones. The reason we have public hearings is not to sit and listen to senators. In fact, at one time, a senator in the legislature had a rule, no soliloquies during public hearings. But Senator Mary Torres decided that committee hearing for Danny Tydenko was her opportunity to climb onto a soapbox where she would be able to, without fear of rebuttal, speak against Danny Tydenko. Now, going back to the intra-legislature dynamics, we have a Democrat majority in the legislature and the nominee of a Democrat governor, and we have a Republican senator who publicly comes out and says this guy should not be confirmed. So, in addition to the ordinary tensions and cross-currents that arise during any confirmation proceeding, you have a senator versus senator issue in this particular situation. So once again, as a general rule, a senator doesn't want to go crossways with another senator unless it's absolutely unavoidable, because the senator that you go crossways with on this issue may be the key vote that you're going to need in 6 months to do something you want to do, and you can't do it without that senator. So one of the conventions in our legislature is that senators are ordinarily very careful about stepping on the toes of another senator. I think you saw some of that during the 34th Guam legislature when we had accusations of ethical violations, none of which ever came to a final determination. Very difficult to get a senator to sit in judgment of another senator. So with Mary Torres speaking ex cathedra at that hearing and coming out against Tydenko, it really put the chairman in an awkward position. If she does a committee report, I'll come back to this after the big halftime show that I've been waiting for. I have to take a break myself, even though this isn't the legislature, and even though I'm not going to go outside, Real Joe Cruz.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A sweeping gun ban in New Zealand. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. First, a massacre. Now, the ban.
New Zealand will ban all military-style semi-automatic weapons.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announcing hours ago that the country is banning those weapons as well as high-capacity magazines. That in response to last week's attack on two mosques that killed 50 people. The ban's expected to take effect April 11th. In the meantime, anyone who wants to buy such a weapon will require a special permit.
We did not wish to allow a situation where irresponsible dealers continue to sell weapons that will be banned within a few weeks.
But Ardern says don't count on getting one of those permits. New Zealand's ban prompts some American lawmakers to renew their calls for tougher gun laws in the U.S.
Vermont Senator and 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders tweeting, "We must follow New Zealand's lead, take on the NRA, and ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons in the United States." But NRA spokesperson Dana Lash tweeting, while New Zealand does not have a, quote, inalienable right to bear arms into self-defense, we do.
Fox's Sean Langell. There was a deal in place, but now an NFL owner in trouble with the law may pass on it.
CNN reporting that New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft will turn down a plea deal from prosecutors that would have had the charges against him dropped if he admitted after reviewing evidence that he would have been found guilty at trial. That would have placed Kraft in a diversion program requiring him to complete community service, pay a fine, undergo an STD screening, and attend a class on the dangers of prostitution. This as attorneys for the Patriots owner Wednesday filed a motion to suppress video evidence described as graphic that shows Kraft receiving services at the Orchids of Asia Day Spa back in January.
Fox's Matt Napolitano. And a federal lawsuit filed in New York claims a pair of JetBlue pilots raped two female airline workers while on an overlay in Puerto Rico. This is Fox News.
Laddie Stone Entertainment and the stations of Choice Broadcasting proudly present the Miss and Mrs. Curvy Guam Pageant on Wednesday, April 3rd at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Tickets are $25 in advance and $35 at the door. VIP tickets are $50 in advance and $65 at the door. Tickets available at the High, Misa Zone, the Vault, and from any of the lovely curvy contestants. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the show starts at 7. Hosted by yours truly, Ryan the Mixologist, and the beautiful Liza Camacho. Special thanks to Pitbull Empire, Local Promos, Figure 8, One Punch Media, and the International Sports Center.
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
President Trump uses a speech in Ohio Wednesday to take another swipe at the late Senator John McCain. And that's drawing criticism from some lawmakers, including some Republicans.
Johnny Isakson is the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and he says the family of John McCain deserves better.
You may not like immigration, you may not like this, you may not like that, you may be a Republican, you may not be a Democrat. We're all Americans. There aren't Democratic casualties and Republican casualties on the battlefield. There are American casualties. And we should never reduce the service that people give to this country.
It is not just Isakson. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tweeted, "Today and every day I miss my good friend John McCain. It was a blessing to serve alongside a rare patriot and genuine American hero in the Senate. His memory continues to remind me every day that our nation is sustained by the sacrifices of heroes."
Fox's Mike Emanuel. The acting chief of the FAA gets a summons to appear before lawmakers after the fatal crashes of Boeing 737 MAX airliners.
A Senate subcommittee on aviation and space will hear from acting FAA Administrator Daniel Elwell next week, the first hearing with top aviation officials since the recent crashes of 2 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft in Indonesia and Ethiopia. The 737 MAX has since been grounded by the FAA. The chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board and the Inspector General of the Transportation Department are also on the witness list. Earlier this week, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao requested an Inspector General audit of the FAA's certification of the Boeing 737 MAX.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Pick up a copy of Time magazine on April 1st and you'll see newly elected Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the cover. The New York City native will reportedly appear next to a headline that says, "The Phenom." I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Help celebrate Earth Month with 93.3 The Point and the return of the Upcycled Mascot Showdown. Stay tuned for details on the upcoming live event and how you can support your favorite school. The Upcycled Mascot Showdown, brought to you by Lolita Kamet from Remax Diamond Realty, the Agana Shopping Center, Sylvan Learning Center, PBS Guam, and 93.3 The Point.
Looking for a great deal on a new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram? Then get to Cars Plus in Mighty now for our spring sales event, like a new Jeep Compass Sport, $166 per paycheck, or a new Chrysler Pacifica LX, $220 per paycheck, or save $8,500 on a new Ram 1500. How about a new Jeep Wrangler Sport, only $274 per paycheck. Low 1.99% financing is available on approved credit. Save thousands during our spring sales event going on now at Cars Plus in Mighty. Cars Plus, driven by you.
I didn't hear the cannons.
We had some technical difficulties in here with the cannons.
Okay, so I have to get a notice out then to all of our international radio listening audience that you'll issue rain checks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that anyone, you could get a refund on your ticket for today's broadcast or a rain check that would allow you to listen to the program twice tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it, sir. I'll work on it.
I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed about that.
Yeah, I'm going to try and figure out what went wrong with it.
Yeah. Maybe you haven't been cleaning the cannons enough?
Possibly, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you didn't load them properly?
That could be it, sir.
You know, this is going to...
I'll take the rap for this one, sir.
Yeah, well, you can afford to with that cult of personality that you've been building up there, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, let's get back to the legislature then. And as I was mentioning, the intra-legislature dynamics here are that when a sitting senator comes out and publicly ex cathedra says this person shouldn't be nominated, it really makes it very difficult for the other senators to deal with that particular nomination. One of the principles involved is that governors feel like you start out with a proposition that the governor should be able to pick the people that she wants to work with her, or excuse me, the governor work with them during their administration. And to not confirm someone, it should only be for very good cause shown. And we'll have to go through this to see whether or not it rises to the level of good cause shown. What happened, Real Joe Cruz?
Caller said that the cannons didn't go off because my powder was wet.
Okay, very, very, very possible. Okay. Keep your powder dry, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
So, so we have the governor who has now come out and stood behind Danny Tydinko. He's a good man. He's what I need at the airport. He's what I want. We've had the committee chair saying, I have heard testimony, and based on that testimony, I'm not going to let this this nomination go forward. I'm not going to do a committee report and circulate it and see if a majority of the members of the committee will vote in favor of reporting the nomination out. I am just going to determine by myself that it's not going to. Now, how that plays out with the members of the committee is hard to say. Some of the members of the committee are perhaps saying, wow, Talina, thank you very much. I'm really glad that you saved us from that thicket. Good call. You might take a little heat on it, but I'm with you. Other members of the committee might have said, you know, we appointed you, we chose you as committee chairman, or you were chosen as committee chairman, not committee czar. Let's let the committee decide on this matter. The public will shape its own viewpoints based on a lot of things, including whether or not they like Danny Tydenko. Probably shouldn't be that way, but I think that's the way it is. So Tolino goes on to say, an overwhelming amount of testimony has been brought before me, and it is with great respect that I present to you a clear explanation of the factors which have led me to this conclusion. Now, the way she's worded that sentence, this better be it. There can't be something else that she's not telling us because of the way she worded her letter. So she said, firstly, there is sufficient evidence to discredit Mr. Tydenko's transparency and full compliance with Guam's open government law. And then there's some really feel-good language about open government, etc. Under Guam law, a meeting is defined as the convening of a governing body of a public agency for which a quorum is required, etc. Based on this definition, it appears that Mr. Tydenko conducted numerous board meetings in secret, as evidenced by email correspondence I received. In so doing, Mr. Tydenko violated what we as lawmakers should guard so conscientiously, the right of the governed to hold their governors accountable. Well, I'd be probably the last guy to speak out against our freedom, our open government law and our sunshine law. Staunch proponent of transparency. Now, I've taken the time to read all of the documents that have been made public since this matter started, published in the 2 newspapers and on the 2 TV stations. And I did see one email, paraphrasing, where I think it was Dan Tydenko wrote to the other members and said, we need to meet at Mike's office like in a day or 2. And that is a possibility. That very well look like the calling of a meeting of the Port Authority Board in contravention of the open government law. But that's not good, and I don't condone that. If that is the case, then that's potentially a criminal violation. We know from the history of the open government law. Tolina goes a little farther than that, though, and she says, sufficient evidence to discredit Mr. Tydenko's credibility because based on this definition, it appears that Mr. Tydenko conducted numerous board meetings in secret, numerous board meetings. Well, I would want to know a little bit more than numerous board meetings. I would like to see the times and dates that the numerous board meetings were conducted, and if there's any sort of paper trail, like as an example, the email I just mentioned, I'd like to see that too. Just a blanket statement, numerous board meetings. I think the chairman, since she says, I present to you a clear explanation of the factors which have led me to this conclusion. That isn't very clear. And she goes on to say, secondly, Mr. Tydenko's management of the Port Authority of Guam's legal fees raises concerns given the challenges that await GIAA. Now more than ever, we must safeguard scrutiny of government spending, etc. The fact that Mr. Tydenko repeatedly permitted irregular and severely delayed submission of legal billings, invoices at the port, casts doubts on his ability to do so at the GIA. Well, this is not very clear, Talina, because the chairman of the board is not the one who approves the bills that the commission pays. If there's somebody who is not up to speed here, it would be the executive manager of the port, Mary Torres. Where was Mary Torres when these late bills were being paid? And the fact that the bills are late, unfortunately, a lot of times lawyers are late with their billing. it works against the lawyer, and it tends to work in favor of the client. The fact that that Phillips submitted his bills late, I don't think is sufficient reason to deny Tydenko's confirmation. The committee received invoices which corroborated this irregular billing pattern continued to the extent that no legal bills were submitted from May 4, 2012 through January 30, 2013. This should give us all pause, if not immediate alarm, as to why Mr. Tydenko permitted this practice. If Mr. Tydenko permitted it, or if Mr. Tydenko permitted the general manager to continue this practice. But I start out with a proposition that this points at the executive manager, not at the chairman of the board of the port. Thirdly, as chair, I cannot ignore that the circumstances surrounding the Port 7 remain unsolved. Furthermore, I cannot clearly discount the allegations substantiated by the gravedigger email or the notion, at least circumstantially, that such an ominous finding was necessary long before an investigation of the 7 employees' terminations. Once again, this is a pretty slender read to hang your case on. But more than that, more than all of the political back and forth that comes with an embattled domination is the reality that a trusted member, and here it comes. These other things weren't good. The late bills, the use of the word gravedigger, the open government violations, but here it comes. But more than all the political back and forth that comes with an embattled domination is the reality that a trusted member of this committee has raised grave concerns about this nominee. That's what it's really all about. So, yeah, that's pretty clear, Talina. In my personal experience, this member has been a cornerstone of this body through troubled times. She has repeatedly been courageous in the face of immense pressure and honest, even when the political winds did not favor the truth. So let's hear it. Can we have a round of applause for Mary Torres? Yeah. Okay. So Talina, once again, is going back to what I started with here. Talina doesn't want to cross a sitting member of the legislature. In fact, rather than cross her, she would use this opportunity to blow a little smoke. And then, Governor, though you've defended the nominee in recent statements describing him as smart and having been around, you also recognize the importance of due diligence and unobstructed decision-making in the confirmation process. Unfortunately, my review of all testimony provided to the committee convinces me that there are serious shortcomings in Mr. Tydenko's suitability to serve on the GIA board. Finally, for these reasons, I cannot forward the nomination to the floor. To do so would abdicate my personal responsibility as chair, deny this position to a future nominee, one with broad support, and permit a large cloud to loom over GIA. Well, I just can't say that I'm really persuaded here. I think I favor my analysis to the one that was put forward here by Talina Nelson now. So there's an awful lot of stuff here. But one of the papers that has been published is the findings of fact and conclusions of law prepared by Mike Phillips' law firm that runs to 16 pages. So I don't carry any brief for Mike Phillips. He's been in practice for a long time. He made an awful lot of money off of what we would call the Lola Cola litigation, and he has as far as I know, he has a good reputation amongst the members of the Guam Bar. I don't think he's ever been disciplined. You can listen long and hard, and you find that he's a skillful advocate, but That's my knowledge of Mike Phillips. So when you have a member of the bar who is hired by the port to be counsel, and he comes up with 16 pages of findings of fact and conclusions of law, I don't think you could willy-nilly disregard those because you think Mary Torres is really a wonderful person. And I think that's really kind of how it comes out. And of course, the board, Danny Tydenko, fired Mary Torres. So we really can't lose sight of that maybe what we're dealing with here is a little bit of revenge. Maybe not. I don't know. But I do want to spend a little time with the findings of fact and conclusions of law. The first person that the findings of fact deal with are Bernadette Mano. Mano alleges that she slipped and fell, injuring herself on September 22, 2012, as you were 2011. However, she did not seek leave for any reason until November 15, 2011. So that would be, 23 days later. Mano waited over 9 months before alleging to management at the port that she sustained any specific injury related to her alleged slip and fall. 9 months. Further, Ms. Mano willfully ignored the requirements that a government employee must fulfill in order to file a valid workers' compensation claim. In fact, Ms. Mano admittedly refused to be seen at Guam Memorial as required. Again, the Workers' Comp Commission maintains it has never been made aware of any specific injury that has not been, and that it has not been informed of any development in this case since September of 2011. Now, remember, we're talking about spending $70,000 on Bernadette Mano's claim that she had a work injury. Ms. Mano has made written representations to port management regarding the extent and severity of her injury, which are contradicted by the medical evidence in her own records. The very specialist she asked to see described the injury to be a small herniated disc. The MRI ordered by this specialist revealed only a mild disc bulge with moderate disc disease. And then the surgeon went on to say, if patient's symptoms do not resolve with conservative therapy, therapeutic spinal injection can be completed. Mrs. Mano, whose file indicates she has taken extensive leave periods for a variety of reasons, and who had already been on extensive leave prior to the injury for medical reasons, claims that she slipped and fell in the bathroom and hurt her legs, hip, back, and arms. The alleged injury occurred on Thursday, just 2 days after the passage of Public Law 31-077, granting paid administrative leave for government workers injured on the job. As of September 20, 2011, they get full pay rather than traditional disability pay of a maximum of $1,000 per month, but only if the injury is certified by the Workers' Compensation Program. No witnesses can even corroborate her claim that she indeed slipped and fell, causing her back injury. Although the file indicates that since July 2011, she has taken over 125 days worth of annual and sick leave and work injury leave based on unspecified medical illness. Notes from her doctor, management now admits that approval from workers' comp is needed to credit Ms. Mano with uncharged leave on the basis of the September 22 slip and fall. Although one can only speculate as to the exact basis of the 125 days leave, her medical file reveals a host of pre-existing medical conditions and ailments which could account for at least some of the symptoms which she attributes to the alleged slip and fall. She has exaggerated her injury, and here's the conclusion. She has exaggerated her injuries, lied about what caused them, and manipulated the system in order to reap benefits for which she knew she was not lawfully entitled. When her port-funded trip to Hawaii got canceled, she bitterly lashed out at those to make things right. She refused to allow Dr. Taniguchi to examine as part of counsel's good faith attempt to get her benefits because she knew it would be discovered that her claim was a fraud. For her role in these willful misrepresentations, illegal expenditures, and following cover-up, Ms. Mano may be charged with the following misdemeanors: official misconduct, unsworn falsifications, and obstructing government functions. Third-degree felonies for which Ms. Mano could be charged include forgery, unlawful influence, and tampering with public records. Ms. Mano may jointly and civilly be personally liable for illegal expenditures which require that she exercise due care, skill, and prudence solely in the interest of people of Guam, or be personally liable for taxpayer actions for as long as 5 years. Her role in acquiring fully paid injury leave for which she has never been entitled under statute carries penalties of up to $100,000 fine and 3 years in prison under 22 GCA Section 9104J3. This is in addition to the misdemeanor violation of making false and misleading statements in order to secure workers' compensation benefits. Violations under the personnel rules include actual attempted theft of government or authority property, disobedience to constituted authorities, or deliberate refusal to carry out any proper order from a supervisor having responsibility of her work, falsification, misstatement, or concealment of material facts in connection with an official record, covering up or attempting to conceal defective work, removing or destroying same without permission. Now, once again, these are allegations. They are put in writing by a member of the Guam Bar, Mike Phillips, who was at the time was counsel for the port, and he did this in the ordinary course of his work. Now, the way it works in a government of Guam agency, if there is reason to believe that an employee has committed nonfeasance, misfeasance, or malfeasance, only the director of that agency can take disciplinary action, which amounts to suspension, demotion, or dismissal. And the director of that agency's only got 60 days from the day he finds out about the misconduct to take action. So somebody has to investigate the possibility that misconduct took place. In the police department, there's an internal affairs section that investigates misconduct on the part of police officers. It comes up with its report to the chief. Based on that report, the chief may or may not take adverse action. If he takes adverse action, he writes up a notice of proposed adverse action. He tells the employee of what it is that he is accused, or excuse me, they are accused of, and indicates what the potential penalty for the misconduct would be. The employee then has the ability to appear before the director, give their side of the story, submit something in writing, be represented by counsel, bring witnesses, whatever. The director then makes his decision and has to have that decision in the hands of the employee no later than 60 days after the director knew about the misconduct. The employee then has 20 days in which to file an appeal before the Civil Service Commission. The Civil Service Commission then will ultimately set the matter down for hearing, will take testimony, examine documents, etc., and render its decision. If either party is dissatisfied with the decision, they can file a petition for judicial review with a superior court, a court case. If either party is in the superior court will make a decision either affirming what the Civil Service Commission did or denying what the Civil Service Commission did, Sometimes they'll just send it back to the Civil Service Commission with instructions. If either of the parties is dissatisfied with what the Superior Court does, then appeal lies to the Supreme Court. And that's what's happened with these cases. Now, in her letter, Talina says, okay, I got this, the seventh inning stretch coming up. Let me look for this part in Talina's letter.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
We've talked about mentoring and the value that can bring to workers who yearn to grow and get ahead. But have you heard of reverse mentoring? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll unpack that concept and see where it takes us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
So once again, we turn our attention to Jack Haddock. And as in the case of the murder case that Sherlock Holmes solved, and his explanation to Dr. Watson, it's not what Jack Haddock did.
It's what he didn't do.
It's what he didn't do. Jack Haddock did not suit up for this game. Yeah, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for tomorrow, Jack. If you can get a one-day waiver from the land trust, what are they called? Chamorro Land Trust Tigers.
Yeah. No, I think it's the Tall Tale Tigers and the Chamorro Land Trust. I forget.
Yeah. Well,
He's probably busy counting hectares and acres and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Chamorro Land Trust Acres. Let's call it that, right?
Okay.
Chamorro Land Trust Acres. Okay. Yeah, so thirdly, this is Talina's third point. Thirdly, as chair, I cannot ignore the circumstances surrounding the quote, Port 7 remain unresolved. Well, yes, they do remain unresolved because the people involved at the port and the employees took advantage of the legal remedies that I just described. The face-to-face with the director, the appeal to the Civil Service Commission, the appeal to the Superior Court, the appeal to the Supreme Court. Would you cut that short, Talina? If so, you might want to confer with Rory Respicio, who seems to have been a major player in this lash-up from the very beginning. Going way back, before the terminations occurred, an attorney named Nelson Werner was investigating the activities of the Port 7 and wrote a letter to the director of the executive director of the Civil Service Commission saying, we are conducting a criminal investigation of several people. There may be more, and we would appreciate it if you don't provide the documentation that we have provided you to others. For instance, it might screw up our criminal case. That letter was sent to the Civil Service, to the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission. The next day, Senator Rory Respicio wrote a letter to Attorney General Lenny Rapadas accusing Nelson Werner, the Assistant Attorney General, the author of the letter, accusing him of prosecutorial misconduct. So one would wonder what Rory Respicio's entree into this controversy was. But anyhow, he wrote to the Attorney General, and miracle of miracles, the next day after Rory wrote his letter, the Attorney General wrote to the Executive Director of the Civil Service Commission saying, I'm canceling Nelson Werner's letter. Don't pay any attention to that. I'm recalling that letter. Nelson Werner left the employ of the Attorney General not long after that. We don't know why, but he's not there anymore. We don't know why the investigation was canceled. And so far, Lenny Rapadas, the Attorney General at that time, has not made himself available to any of the news media to tell us what happened to that criminal investigation. So again, I think the key point here is that it's Mary Torres that really kind of submarined this. Bernadette Maino testified, and I think one of the other people that got fired testified. Not a surprise. And Mary Torres herself, of course, got fired. So one of the posters here says, ought Mary Torres have recused herself? Well, one could make that argument that, that she brought what she alleges is firsthand knowledge of the controversy before the commission in such a manner as to short-circuit Danny Tydenko's opportunities to rebut the things that she said. There was a big pile of papers submitted by Danny Tydenko after that hearing. And then on Sunday night, Mary Torres submitted her papers. And really the only thing that she said, after I read Mary Torres's letter, I came away with a couple of conclusions. One, that the board at the port may have violated the open government law. Two, Mary Torres does not like Danny Tydenko. Now, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not confirm someone to a board or commission, the fact that you don't like him. And if you go back, there's a transcript, like a 24-page transcript of a board meeting attended by Mary Torres, where it looked like the board members were attempting to get to the bottom of what happened or what didn't happen. And they had to ask Mary Torres some rather pointed questions. And judging from the one or two of the responses, I don't think Mary Torres liked it very much. So it could very well be that what we're looking at here is that the board, working with an investigation conducted by a lawyer, found that there was misconduct at the port, that some of the misconduct was committed by the executive manager herself, that the misconduct had to be dealt with, that Mary Torres said, I am the director, I'm the executive manager, I'm not going to fire anybody because of this. And the board said, okay, then we'll have to let you go and we'll get somebody else to be the executive manager of the port. There was a Troy Torres dimension to this. Also, Troy Torres submitted his papers. I guess you could hardly rule that the record of any controversy is complete until Troy Torres submits his papers. But according to Troy Torres, some conversation at the governor's office was, well, let's give Mary a soft landing. Let's put her in charge of Guam Visitors Bureau. And of course, this whole thing started out at the governor's office because governor's office approves large expenditures of money for travel, specifically the chief of staff. So according to Troy Torres, when the governor's office, people at the governor's office found out about this $70,000 expenditure to send Bernadette Mano to Hawaii, along with the triple per diem and the extended stay, they said, what in the world is going on here? Needless to say, Troy Torres used much more graphic language than I could use on the air. What is going on here? And they asked Tydenko, as the chairman, to find out what the heck was going on. And the rest all played out just pretty much as these papers say. So if this hurt Mary Torres's feelings, and that's pretty much what it comes down to, you know, her statement said, I can find her statement here. Mr. Tydenko's supplemental testimony only reinforces his unsuitability to be a member of the airport board. Although given an opportunity to respond, he tellingly does not deny the many secret meetings he organized in violation of Guam law or the gravedigger email reflecting his prejudgment and lack of open-mindedness. He does not defend against his cozy relationship with the port's legal counsel, which permitted the tardy submission of legal bills months after services were rendered. Now, if she's saying that the bills were exorbitantly high or, you know, inaccurate or something like that, I could see a real concern. He further does not address his callous and cruel remarks at board meetings and to employees, which is corroborated by testimony of former and current employees submitted to the committee. So I think that's really what it comes down to. Callous and cruel remarks in the eyes of Mary Torres. Instead, the nominee makes a desperate attempt to deflect attention away from himself and doubles down on the flawed findings of his counsel's politically motivated investigation. Well, his counsel, I guess Mary Torres means that Mike Phillips is Tydenko's counsel, not the port's counsel. Though I did not expect more from him, Mr. Tydenko's silence on the documented actions is deafening. He has failed in his last-ditch effort to clear his sullied name. It is not surprising that Mr. Tydenko relies on the flawed findings of fact and conclusions of law and other documents put together by his friendly attorneys. The findings of fact, etc., was not prepared by a neutral arbiter who considered arguments and evidence from both sides, but by attorneys with preordained conclusions that acted as investigator, prosecutor, judge, jury, executioner, and gravedigger. Now, Mary, if that's the way you think government departments operate, I have some understanding why the board was a little bit unhappy with you. When it comes to determining whether an employee committed misconduct, he does not get a neutral arbiter. He gets somebody who is in the employ of that agency who conducts an investigation and provides his or her, or to make the real Joel Cruz happy, their findings to the director of the agency with some evaluation of whether or not those charges are warranted. This is amazing. The findings of fact and conclusions of law was not prepared by a neutral arbiter who considers arguments and evidence from both sides. That never happens. That never could happen. The director's got 60 days. So there's no mini trial inside the agency. That's why there's a Civil Service Commission and 2 layers of judicial review. In a letter to Port Management dated February 21, Ms. Leon Guerrero states that 3 attorneys with the port's legal counsel interrogated her during interviews held in January of 2013 and tried to get Ms. Leon Guerrero to state that, quote, Mary Torres or Vivian Leon directed her to alter documents relating to Ms. Mano's workers' comp claim. During these meetings, the attorneys repeatedly tried to get me to say that Mary Torres or Vivian Leon directed me to alter the GWC 101A. That's the workers' compensation form authorization for medical examination and treatment, and GWC 202, which is the workers' compensation form employer's report of occupational injury or illness. Well, from what Phillips said, those forms never existed because no one ever turned them into workman's comp. When I explained that no one had directed me to do anything, they became upset, Ms. Leon says. After her meeting with the port's counsel, Ms. Leon Guerrero states that Paul Salas, another port employee, approached her and explained that Attorney Phillips instructed him to return to the office to tell Ms. Leon Guerrero that she would lose her job and would be criminally prosecuted. She further states, I believe that this adverse action has been proposed by legal counsel in an attempt to discredit or silence me. I also believe that this proposed adverse action is in retaliation for my refusal to say Mary Torres or Vivian Leon directed me to do anything. Ms. Leon Guerrero's letter is but one example of abusive tactics employed by Mr. Tydenko and his legal counsel to bend facts for their patched up, poorly reasoned, and politically motivated investigation. As the port safety administrator, it was Mr. Francisco Roberto that was ultimately responsible for reviewing all documents pertaining to job injury-related claims. It therefore stands to reason that as Ms. Leon Guerrero's immediate supervisor, he knew or should have known about all documents that Ms. Leon Guerrero would have filed in Ms. Mano's file. And yet, amidst the grand conspiracy concocted by the port for 7 unrelated files, Mr. Roberto was notably excluded from any legal counsel's accusations or conspiracy or wrongdoing. Instead, Ms. Leon Guerrero, who had been in the port's family for almost 5 years and had never refused or failed to perform her duties and responsibilities, and who claims that she never falsified or was directed by myself to falsify records, was deemed to take the fall simply because she refused to lie on behalf of the port's legal counsel. Well, there's some pretty heavy-duty statements there, and of course, if you compare them to the findings of fact and conclusions of law, you come to some pretty interesting conclusions yourself. Because after Mike Phillips deals with Bernadette Mano, the next subject of interest is Mary Torres, the general manager. And this is what Phillips says. The general manager remained well aware of all material events surrounding Ms. Mano's travel to Hawaii under the guise of a workman's comp claim for quite some time. Mrs. Torres had been signing off on extensive sick leave and annual leave for Ms. Mano since at least July of 2011. Ms. Mano even emailed Ms. Torres directly and personally, parenthesis, hi Mary and Vivian, close parenthesis, on August 11, 2012, to share explicit details of her alleged back injury, specifically her upcoming trip to Honolulu to have surgery with Dr. Hayashida at port expense. Ms. Torres emailed the chairman on October 18. The false statement that everything had been, she emailed the false statement that everything had been approved by and processed through the Department of Labor and the Workers' Comp Commission. In fact, Ms. Torres had reason to know that these statements were false. Miami Ubanario, there's a name for you, Miami Ubanario had explained to Ms. Torres on the morning of October 19 that the reason she could not disperse per diem checks for Ms. Mano or her escort because the expenditure was invalid for a number of reasons, including the fact that there was no valid workman's comp claim to begin with. Okay, there's still a lot more in this, and I'm going to bring it back tomorrow because I think it's an extremely important item, and it's a little complicated and a little hard to lay out, so I'm going to stop there for today. We'll bring it back tomorrow. We're heading down into the home stretch, so stay tuned for the real Joe Cruz and his
aphorisms.
If you have family or friends getting treatment right now at St. Luke's Medical Center in the Philippines, we want to connect with you. Hafaday, I'm Joe Guam. Thanks to our partners, we're bringing Mes Samoru to St. Luke's in Global City. I'll be playing a free show on March 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. in the St. Luke's Piano Lounge for all our Guamanians out there. All family members accompanying the patient are invited to join us, but seats are limited, so please tell your family to go to joeguam.com to register online and reserve your spot. This event is presented by Guam Windward Memorial. Special thanks to our affiliate partners, Stay Well Guam, Take Care Insurance, Guam Hearing Doctors, Lombard Health Eye Clinic, Guam Premier Outlets, and Coast 360. Our contributing partners, Moylan's Net Care and Data Management Resources. Our supporting partners, American Music, Fizz & Co., The Coconut Tree Company, Kadu Restaurant, and our promotional partner, The Point, Sidus Mossids, and Biba Mes Samoru.
I'm proud to be a Guamanian where America's day begins. And I can't forget the women and men who fought for my brown skin.
So here we are in the home stretch. We've got about 7 minutes here. We can spend those with the real Joe Cruz, who is sort of the intellectual in residence here, and also the wordsmith of some renown. You'll recall when he answered some of the questions that I saw, really hard questions that I posed to him last week. Also his sterling imitations of Yogi Berra. Well, now he wants to talk to us about aphorisms. So, real Joe Cruz, what is an aphorism?
An aphorism is a short, pointed sentence that expresses a wise or clever observation or general truth.
Can you give us an example?
Okay, I could give you an example. Well, the nicest thing about the future is that it always starts tomorrow.
Okay, how about if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
That's a good one.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk a little bit about when's a good time to keep you keep your mouth open a lot, real Joe Cruz. That's how you develop this intense personality cult.
I can't breathe through my nose, Bob.
Oh, okay. So when is it a good time to keep your mouth shut?
A good time to keep your mouth shut is when you're in deep water.
Well, there's an aphorism for you. I've noticed that little children are oftentimes afraid of the dark. They don't like it. They maybe want to have a nightlight on in their bedroom or something like that. And little kids seem to be afraid of the dark, real Joe Cruz. Is that curable?
It is. I'm just wondering how come it takes so little time for a child who is afraid of the dark to become a teenager who wants to stay out all night.
Okay. Okay, and you know, we don't have very many conferences here at Tall Tales, but I've been in businesses and departments where there are repeated conferences. And are conferences important, Real Joe Cruz?
I think they are. Business conferences are important because they demonstrate how many people a company can operate without.
Okay. And then, you know, given my age, I've been to more than one class reunion. And have you ever been to a class reunion, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, yes. And I always wondered why is it that at school reunions you feel younger than everyone else looks?
Yeah, and some of the people got so old that they can't recognize you.
That's true.
Do you have a cat or a dog at home, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm a dog person, sir.
Okay.
But you know, I've lived with a cat before at one time.
What can you tell us about cats?
Well, I'll tell you this: if you stroke a cat, you'll have a permanent job.
Okay. Have you ever been a teenage boy, Real Joe Cruz? Dumb question. Of course you've been.
I think I have, sir.
Yeah, I think. Up until when? Last year? No. Withdraw the question.
No one has more driving ambition than the teenage boy.
And is there more to it than that?
Well, yeah. Who wants to buy a car?
There you go. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about sin, Real Joe Cruz.
Sins. Oh, it is Lent, sir. There are no new sins. The old ones just get more publicity.
Okay. And have you ever been awakened early in the morning by a telephone call?
Yes, I have. Well, the worst things, there are worse things than getting a call for a wrong number at 4 a.m. For example, it could be the right number.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of Hillary Clinton. Who do you want to answer the phone when it rings at 3 o'clock in the morning? Hillary Clinton. Right? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to sportsmanship. We've talked about sportsmanship before, right? It's not whether you won or lost. It's how you assign the blame, right?
That's true, sir.
Yeah.
Well, no one ever says it's only a game when their team is winning.
Yeah. Okay.
It's true.
Yeah. You know, I once upon a time, I used to drink a little beer, and there were a couple of places in town where lawyers, accountants, folks who work downtown would go after work for happy hour. But my happy hour now is much more productive. I spend my happy hour right here on Tall Tales, right?
True, sir.
Yeah, but what can you tell me about happy hour, Real Joe Cruz?
Well, for me personally, I've reached the age where happy hour is a nap.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you know, along the same lines, you know, when you're at, you know you are at the threshold of geezerhood. When, upon hearing your alarm go off in the morning, you realize that the most enjoyable part of your day is now over.
True, sir.
Okay, well, that caps it off for another exciting episode of Tall Tales. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll go back a little bit more on Manogate, and we'll have something to say about what the legislature did with the cannabis bill today. See you tomorrow.